some sweets cravings, but I feel like once they do a low-carb diet and they come off of it, the eating is more out of control. Like, the diet caused the problem.
Exactly. I mean, I remember this from when I was like 12, which is when I really was like, became aware of, oh, if I don't eat as much, you know, maybe I'll lose weight. And I started trying to do that. I never had any eating issues. I never had any feelings like, oh, I can't control myself around potato chips. But as soon as I started, exactly like Jen is saying, as soon as I started being aware and saying, oh, I can't eat that, I shouldn't eat that, suddenly it's all I could think about. And we've all experienced this. It's pretty straightforward human behavior.
Right. And this kind of brings me back to, like, I'm kind of remembering some bits and pieces of the book itself. Again, it's been a while, but I remember them talking about when somebody first gets started with intuitive eating, that they're allowed to basically eat whatever they want. They're allowed to indulge, and then at some point that kind of settles down. Like, there's a period where you might overeat for a while, you might binge, but then you kind of settle down. Is that something that does commonly happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it was last summer we were both going through this where we were. So I, in particular, I would keep foods out of my house. So I'm single. I don't need to worry about like a partner or husband or kids or anything. So I have full control about what I have in my kitchen. And I was like, I don't buy bags of potato chips, or if I do, I buy those single serving bags of potato chips. And this is going to go off on a very specific rant here, but in particular, I love plain Ruffles, and they don't sell them in the small bags. They only sell them in the big bags, so I like never would get to eat them unless I went to a party. And so like a big thing for me was to buy a full bag of Ruffles potato chips, and the fear was I'm going to eat the whole bag. And it's going to be disgusting. You know, there's all those typical things. I don't know if you guys have ever done this where you, like, throw the bag in the trash when it's not done yet because you're, like, trying to get it away, and then maybe you pull it back out of the trash.
Or you put it in, like, a high cabinet. Like,
like all these tricks. So, you know, last year I started buy the chips, and, you know, more and more, like, I do like to, like, go have a couple, like, to have that crunch, but I never, you know, it started to lose its luster. It wasn't as, like, you know, it wasn't as big of a deal. I got used to them, and I knew that I could have them at any time, and that really changed how I ate them, because I think a lot of the overeating is, like, I'm not going to allow myself to have this tomorrow, so I need to eat as much of it as I can now. It's like this Last Supper mentality. Like, so if you have, like you talked about, like allowing yourself those foods, the first thing you have to do is let go of dieting. Because if you don't let go of dieting, this won't work. Yeah. Because you're going to have that idea of dieting in the future, and that is going to affect how you eat now.
I think that's a great point. I want to highlight Jen's point around even thinking about starting a diet in the future causes preoccupation with food today and will change how we eat today. So again, a lot of it is about scarcity and abundance. If we're living in abundance and we know that there's enough and we know that we can have what we want when we want it, in general, you know, give or take, then we're not going to have those same food preoccupations like Jen had with the Ruffles. And we all have our quote-unquote Ruffles. We all have that kind of food. So what we're specifically talking about here is actually has a name, which is habituation. And we can do this with everything. We can do it with literally everything. We can think of if you, let's say, for example, you never get to go to the pool. And you go to the pool, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing going to a pool. But then you go to the pool every day for a month. And you're like, kind of used to going to the pool now. It's still great, still good. But then when your friend says, hey, do you want to go to the pool? You're like, oh, well, I mean, I could go to the pool, or maybe I'll just lie on the side. I don't really, like, need to go to the pool. I go to the pool all the time. It's the same idea with the food. So I had this talk with a client earlier today where I was comparing it to the little squirrels right now because it's fall, and they're all, like, gearing up, right? And they're doing that, and they're stuffing their cheeks because of the scarcity that they know is coming. Right? We have that same instinct.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, the little squirrelies.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is We're squirrels.
That is the takeaway. If you take away one thing from this podcast.
And we're saying you have big cheeks.
But I do want to share, because I think it's a powerful thing. I mean, it was powerful for me to hear about this, but like my ruffles was chocolate. And the really interesting thing about this, same thing, never kept chocolate in my house. I can't control myself around it. And Sonny, my partner, his parents always gave us a lot of chocolate. I always get really irritated. Oh, don't get this chocolate out of my space. Like, really uncomfortable, felt very anxious around it. We had this big bowl, and I told Jen's going to remember this story. I took a huge handful out, and I said, we are going to sit down, and you are going to eat this. And, like, you can have as much as you want. It was the first time I really, truly gave myself full permission. I want you to have it. Have as much as you want. And I remember so vividly, I sat down on the couch, took a deep breath, and looked at it. And it was so funny because I was like, thought in my head, I'm like, well, it's like, I don't really want it now. Like, I'm not really craving chocolate, actually, now that I really think about if this is what I want to eat. I think it was like around lunchtime. I'm like, maybe we could try it after I have my lunch. I mean, it was fascinating because as soon as that permission was given, just like Jen said, the allure and like the forbidden fruit, right? I was like, oh, well, I guess, can we do this later? Like, I don't actually really want this now. It was just a really powerful moment for me, and one of many examples that I've had over the practice of intuitive eating where that's happened and loses its control.
And this may be a bad example because it's alcohol, but I kind of think about like France and Italy and how kids have wine at the table. And I don't think when they go to college, they're having these like terrible binging issues with alcohol. But then you look at the United States and even like England and like, you know, the drinking, once you get to an age or you're away from your family, it's like, oh, I can have it now. But if it's been around all the time, maybe the relationship's a little different. And obviously that has many different layers if there's alcoholism and all kinds of things.
Let's not, that's not the takeaway. Take away the squirrel thing.
So maybe the squirrel thing is a little better, but I just think about that idea of like having access to it and it just not being that big of a deal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of loses its power over you in that moment where you're able to now just let go of it, and it's just not it doesn't control you now. Whereas before, like you said, it's the forbidden fruits. Like you can't have it, so that's like all you want.
Yep.
It's all you want is that forbidden fruit. Okay, so and we touched on this a little bit already, but what are some common misconceptions of intuitive eating? Because I'm sure people have heard about intuitive eating, at least in passing, maybe in the I don't know, on the internet, or maybe they've read the book or heard of the book. What are some things that people might think about it that aren't true?
Yeah, I'm going to say, I hope this isn't what you're thinking, Jen, but that it's a eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full diet. So this is a really big issue happening right now with the diet industry in general, where their diet companies are realizing that diets are going out of fashion and that intuitive eating is coming into fashion and having this kind of surge right now in the especially social media. And so a lot of diet companies are actually co-opting this idea of intuitive eating and saying, lose weight using intuitive eating. Sorry, but if you are going into intuitive eating with the idea that you are going to lose weight, that immediately basically negates and just poisons the process. So I really encourage people to actually go to intuitiveeating.org to get your information, because when I Google intuitive eating, guess what comes up? Frickin' Noom.
Oh, yeah.
Noom comes up, which is like making you weigh yourself every day. It's like
tracking calories.
Don't even get me started. But
Noom is a diet, people.
Noom is
don't
a diet.
Let them fool you.
Exactly.
Sorry.
So I think that is one of the, Jen, I'm sure has more to talk about, but that idea that this is a eat only when you're hungry, stop it right when you're full. That is not what it is. This is about taking imperfect action, embracing the fact that there is no perfect way to eat, and that this is a practice, right? Just like yoga, you have the top yogis in the world, whatever, people have been practicing yoga for 60 years. They still call it a practice. They don't say, and now I'm just doing yoga. No, it's always a practice, and this is no different.
Yeah, and I think, oh my God, my brain just like, bleh.
Was it the yogi thing.
You went to yoga. How dare you? I mean, I think it also, I think sometimes people get up in arms because they think it's like an endorsement of obesity or an endorsement of unhealthy behavior.
Right. Like some people just need to lose weight, Jen. Like,
yes.
Shouldn't we just, some people really need to go on a diet, and I completely disagree with that statement, but I think that's what you're referring to.
Exactly. And this is kind of the idea that like dieting and attempting to lose weight for your health is actually bad for your health.
Exactly.
So you're still pursuing your health, but you are also, like Justine said, this idea like you stop when full. When you're intuitive eating, there are still times when you eat past full. Mm-hmm. It's not like that ends, but how you feel about it changes, which is really going to affect how you act in the future too. So if there's not the guilt and shame around eating till you're full, it happens and then it's over. And you get to like move on with your life instead of spending a week like over exercising and being upset and just like all the things that could happen after that. And just this idea that it's endorsing unhealthy behaviors. I think that's like a common misconception.
I agree, and I think it's a good time to add that intuitive eating is aligned with HAES, which is health at every size. Again, super misunderstood movement and idea, but the idea is, and there's research to back this up, that weight-centric behaviors are not long-term beneficial for our health. So this idea that if we are just focused on weight loss or getting to a certain weight or whatever, it is actually not conducive to overall health benefits. And so health at every size is simply a way of saying we can move towards better health without weight being even in the equation. We just don't even need to know it. We don't need to focus on it. And we can still have habits that support our health no matter the size of our bodies. So, and intuitive eating is aligned with that idea of HAES, or health at every size, as well.
And so this, I hear what you're saying. I'm just wondering now. I'm curious, like, because weight is part of the equation, but obviously we don't want to make it the sole focus of it. Like, there's still, I mean, I don't know, you can maybe shed some light on this for me so I understand it better, but there's still things like BMI and how a lot of these obese, I guess, related health problems that come up are associated with weight. So, I don't know, like, is it we take weight out of the equation completely, or do we make it just one more piece of the puzzle amongst other things like your blood pressure, cholesterol, joint health and stuff like that as well? What do you think?
Well, if 95% of diets fail, how can we keep weight loss in the weight in the equation?
We don't know. There's no method at this time that has been proven to make people lose weight and keep it off. Do you know what I mean? So, like, how is it fair for us to say, we're going to need you to lose weight? That's really the answer to all of your health issues, which arguably that's not true. But we don't know how to help you do that. And maybe we put you through bariatric surgery or these kind of extreme measures. The fact
which
is,
can have really terrible effects on your health.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so the idea being that healthy habits create a healthier life and a healthier body, and we can do those habits, like we can work towards healthier habits and not have it be, there's just not any, to me, there's no need. I understand that the medical industry needs numbers, and this is part of the issue, is that we're just working within a system where there needs to be stats, there needs to be numbers. It's very difficult to have somebody come in and say, hey, how's your energy today? Because a lot of these issues surrounding health have to do with stress, have to do with not sleeping well, have to do with lack of resources, have to do with lack of access to, let's say, like, I'm so lucky I can go walk down my street and back, and I feel very safe, right? Not everyone is able to do that. So this idea it's just a lot more nuanced and complicated. So people's health is a lot more nuanced and complicated than putting them on a scale. That's how I feel. And I understand, again, like, insurance companies want BMI and they want weight, and that is something that healthcare providers are contending with, which sucks, because even if you have a healthcare provider that is aligned with Hayes Health at Every Size and is like, hey, I know this weight loss thing isn't working, let's focus on these other things, most likely you still can't get certain surgeries without being under a certain weight. And there are a lot of examples